India win another bilateral series, and the Pakistan Cricket Board continues to outdo itself. Welcome to the shiny side. I have with me Imran Aslam today. How are you doing, Imran?
Good, Faris. Good to be back with you.
Yes, it's been a while. And so, what are we looking at today, guys? So, we're looking at firstly, we'll look back at the India Australia series that just finished. India just won a thriller and won the series 4-1. We will also talk about who the hell is the Indian T20 captain. Nobody knows. We will also talk about what Mitchel Johnson's taken a few shots at David Warner today. And Bangladesh won a home test against New Zealand. But to start things off, let's talk about closer to home. Salman Butt, PCB. I don't know where to start, Imran, but just when you think, you know what, the PCB can't do anything worse, this is probably as bad as it gets, they pull a new one out of the hat. And 2 days ago, for those of you who've been sleeping under a rock, Salman Butt was announced as a member of the selection committee under Wahab Riaz. There was some serious backlash on Twitter and media, apparently within the cricket board as well. And 24 hours later, Wahab Riaz did a press conference and he had to change his decision and said he's no longer part of the committee. Salman Butt obviously was the man behind the spot fixing scandal of 2010. He's the man. I mean, there were 3 people involved, and he was the captain, really the mastermind behind from the cricketer's point of view. So again, right, there's what the right thing to do. There's also an optics angle, and this was just a horrible decision in my view on both accounts. Imran, how do you see it?
It's unbelievable. I mean, just I think at a loss for words. I don't know at this point what's actually worse, whether the fact that they named him or then whether a day later they made a complete U-turn. I mean, they just keep making a bigger fool out of themselves every day, literally. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking when they named Salman Butt as on the selection panel. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous to have somebody like him there. And then obviously shows how little thinking had gone into the whole thing with the fact that they withdrew their decision a day later. Just ridiculous.
I think a lot of decision making at the PCB seems to be not done very a lot of I think individuals are making big calls, and then once things get out, I mean, the fact that this was also registered heavily within the PCB, media reports suggest that one individual within the PCB hierarchy threatened to resign if this wasn't taken back. No one knows who that is. There's thoughts about that could be Mohammad Hafiz, because Hafiz has been very vocal about not getting the guys who've been involved in spot fixing into the side before. He was also very vocal against Mohammad Ahmed's inclusion. So I don't know if it was Hafiz or not, but there was a couple of people internally very much against this decision. And it just continues. What has to be one of the poorest, I mean, and by PCB standards, one of the poorest 2-3 months we've seen, right? There's one bad decision after the other, and each one tops the last one.
It's just terrible. I mean, I think there's just no thinking going into anything right now. They're just randomly coming up with things. I mean, we're talking about Salman, but yes, but even Kamran Akmal, what is he doing there even? I mean, just there's no sense to it at all, honestly. You can try to think about it. There's no sense to it, right, at all.
We were talking about this on one of the shows, right? But I think Saud mentioned that, I think that it just seems like whoever is on TV bashing the teams the most, they get a role, right? So whether it's Kamran Akmal, whether it's Wahab, whether there's a bunch of other guys. So Hafiz was also on TV during the World Cup. So that, and if you, I guess, have some kind of political link, that obviously helps, unfortunately.
Of course, yeah.
But anyway, moving on to what we've just seen in Bengaluru. So India just won a thriller against Australia. It was actually a super interesting game where Australia needed 32 in the last 3 overs, and Wade took an over for 15 runs, and then it was 17 in the last 10 in the last over. And initially on the first ball, Arshdeep balled this bouncer, which Wade thought should have been a no ball, and the commentators thought so as well, but it wasn't given. Wade seemed super frustrated, never recovered a couple of dot balls, and he got out. And then the new guy who came in, he played a straight drive, which essentially hit the bowler's arm and then hit the umpire's crotch. So could have gone for 4 or perhaps 2, but it just seemed like luck wasn't in Australia's favor. And India took the series 4-1. Initial thoughts on this series win and today's game around?
Yeah, so I think obviously a very, very good win for India overall, 4-1, strong statement. But I mean, I'm not sure how much we can really read into this series, given how it came right on the back of the World Cup, given how a lot of first choice players from both sides were missing. But I think augurs well for India in the sense that they tested a lot of their bench strength, especially on the batting department, and most of their batting seems to be clicking and scoring.
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, for Australia, I don't think they'd be too bothered at this stage with the loss. Again, most of their key players are not even in the country anymore.
Yeah, I'm just incredibly happy for Travis Head after winning the semi and the final. He gets to go home and celebrate. Finally, he was the only guy
Yeah.
left here from the World Cup squad, and he was playing today, so he gets to go back home tomorrow. But
Yeah.
if you look at the game today, I mean, India batted first, made about 160, which seemed slightly under par, and then Head started off again 28 of 18. Ben McDermott, by the way, who's Craig McDermott's son, he top scored for Australia at 54. Wade seemed to be winning it for them at 22 or 15 balls, but once he was gone, they seemed to be, that was it. I think the game a couple of days ago was India also won by 120 runs. Indian spinners have been pretty good, and if you look at how Akshar and Bishnoi actually bowled in the fourth inning as well. They've been the ones who kind of cramped Australia down. But any thoughts on India's upcoming talent, Imran? I don't know. We'll get to India's T20 World Cup, but it seems a bit like whether we see a lot of this crew in the next World Cup or not. This will probably be the crux of the team in 3 or 4 years' time.
Yeah, definitely. They've got a lot of these new guys coming in. Honestly, some of the names are completely like new names to me, especially if you don't like closely follow IPL. You kind of lost at seeing who are these guys. But I think the likes of Gaikwad, he's been around for maybe a bit at least, and he's had a very good series. And Jaiswal also, I think, had a decent series, but yeah, on the spin, obviously Akshar Patel has been around. He was, I think, he was injured before the World Cup, right?
No, I think they left him out. They left him out.
Oh, they left him out.
Yeah, he was in the T20 World Cup last year, though. He's been around the side a lot, obviously. Yeah.
He's been around for a while. He bowled well today again at 4 overs of 14. Vishnu as well, a couple of wickets. I think he's, again, at least I have not seen much of him. So again, another new one. Arshdeep, I think, got a lot of praise coming out for him after him keeping his cool in the last over.
Yeah, I mean, he went for a lot before that, right? So I think he went for about 33 in his first 3, but then the last over he was cool as cucumber.
Yeah. I think he's done this. I can remember him doing this a couple of times before as well.
Yes.
Bowling a last over. I don't remember who it was against. Maybe it was against us, but I remember him in the past as well, bowling last over, keeping his cool and really pulling off. And he's got a good Yorker.
I think that was in the Asia Cup against us last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it might have been.
But if you look at India, I mean, overall, right, in the way forward for India, so we touched upon this in the last show. But for those of you who don't follow Indian cricket that closely, you may not realize that since the last T20 World Cup in November last year, Rohit and Kohli haven't played a single T20. India never announced that Rohit's no longer captain, but Hardik led them in every single game until, of course, this series where Hardik was injured. And we thought, once for the South African series, if Rohit is to lead them in the World Cup, he'll be back as captain. And if not, they will say that Hardik is captain. But for that series as well now, they've announced a squad where Rohit is rested again and Hardik is injured. So we have no idea who the Indian T20 captain is at this point. And after the South African series, India only plays 3 T20s against Afghanistan in March before the IPL. And then there's a World Cup. So it seems like I'm not sure whether they haven't decided or they just haven't kind of announced it yet. Do you have a view on this, Imran?
I think that obviously, given that Hardik has not recovered, and I think they said that they're pretty much letting Rohit and Kohli as well, for that matter, decide whether they want to play at what stage they want to play white ball cricket and what they want to play. So I think if Hardik had been fit, he would have probably captained both the Australia series and the South Africa series.
Sure,
definitely.
Not Sky, but
yeah. I think, I know they haven't officially announced it, but I would think that they're going to, if once Hardik comes back, they're probably going to keep him on, like go with him as captain. Right now, as you said, they're playing a few T20s only, so I'm guessing IPL form is going to have a lot to do with their squad. Eventually, whoever gets picked, and I think there's quite a bit, especially on the batting. Does Rohit come back in? Does Kohli come back in, for that matter? We don't know right now. So I think IPL form and IPL stats are probably going to count towards a lot in the final selection of their squad.
But I guess they would probably know about 13 out of the 15 before that anyway, right? They would need to make that call because they don't play no more T20s after that. But so you think they'll probably go with Hardik Anderson, right? Because I feel like, generally speaking, Rohit in the last year hasn't played any T20s for India. He struggled a bit with the Mumbai Indians as well in the last season or two. Having said that, I know it's a different format, but the way we've seen him take the game on in the ODI World Cup, you would think that approach and that mindset and that skill would really augur well in a T20 tournament also. Also, the fact that it's in the West Indies, where perhaps it's a bit lower and slower than what the Indian guys are used to, and most of them probably haven't played a lot there, given that no one plays in the CPL because they only play in the Indian leagues. So I feel like if I was up to me, I would probably want Rohit and Kohli and then have a bunch of younger guys around them. But I'm not sure which way they're going to go.
Yeah, I think because they have so much of this fresh blood coming in, like all these guys, Gaikwad, Jaswal, Rinku, etc.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going. It's going to be tough to fit everybody in. Shubman Gill is not. I think Shubman Gill has not played this season. He's been their best T20 batsman for the past year or so, and I think even he was standout performer in the last IPL as well.
Yeah.
But they have so many options going around. I think we might see Kohli and Rohit less India in the World Cup.
Because I guess the fact that it's only 6 months away, again, my view is that those two should be in there, but all these younger guys around them. But let's see how this plays out. Okay, good stuff. I guess just before we move on, and by the way, if you like our content, please like the video and subscribe to our channel, because we'll keep coming up with more and more content leading up to the T20 World Cup. But as far as the test squad is concerned, just a quick word for Rahane and Pujara, who've been left out of India's test squad. Bumrah is back after 18 months, but this is probably the end of the road for Pujara and Rahane as test cricketers. And I feel like they're probably a bit underrated as in terms of the role they played in making India the dominant test team under Virat Kohli and after that. A word on them, Imran?
Yeah, I think Rahane for sure, definitely. Sorry, Pujara. Pujara has been a big rock in India's batting, right? I think he's to a large extent played the role that Dravid used to play for them, and he has a really strong record. And I don't think he's even underrated. I think he is recognized strongly. Rahane, not so much. I think Rahane has also been good for them, and I think I remember Rahane getting some good scores on tough overseas tours, South Africa as well as England. So he's someone who's actually done well for them in those tough overseas tours. Never easy coming in, batting 5, 6, coming in and at that position, but he's done well for them over the past.
And so, in that epic test series where they beat Australia with most of the first 11 missing, India were 36 all out. Kohli left for India because I think he was having the birth of his child. Rahane came in as captain at the MCG test, scored 100, won India that test, and they went on to win the series. So again, one of those pivotal moments, especially in countries like South Africa, like Australia, like England, he would really shine.
Yeah, he has done well. But again, just I think goes to show the amount of talent they have at their disposal, right? Especially on the batting side.
So for those of you watching, if you think India should have persisted with Pujara and Rahane in the test series, please leave a comment and let us know what you think. But moving on, something interesting came out today, completely unexpected. So Mitchel Johnson in his column has taken some shots at David Warner this morning. And he's effectively said that David Warner is someone who's been performing fairly poorly in the last 12 months or so in test cricket. He was possibly the mastermind behind the sandpaper scandal. And he never fully owned up to it and acknowledged his mistake. So why the hell is Australia planning the entire summer as a David Warner farewell? Is it uncalled for? And it's Australia is not like India where they do these things all the time. So he said he doesn't understand why that's happening. What's your take on that, Imran?
Yeah, it is surprising. I mean, it is a bit, like you said, un-Australian to be thinking of packaging the whole series as a Warner farewell or whatever.
The whole summer, maybe actually.
Yeah. So it's odd. It's odd. And he's talked about a few other things as well, Johnson, right? And I think he makes a lot of sense when he talks about Bailey being too close to the players and how someone who's been in and around the team as a player is now a selector, and how that is probably not the best situation, and that reminds me of the whole Wahab Riaz, Hafiz,
absolutely for very different reasons, right? Because in the Pakistan case, we say these guys will try to get one back on Babar Azam, etc. And here he's saying Bailey's too friendly with the guys. But either way, right? There's room for questions to be raised.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that is one thing that Johnson said that I think makes a lot of sense, that you need to have some kind of gap between transitioning from player to administrative role, and you should not be basically selecting guys who you've regularly played cricket with. I think Bailey himself said, I can't make a decision about Tim Paine's captaincy because
Yes, when
he's
the
my
whole
good
sexting
friend.
scandal happened, yes, that's correct.
Exactly, right? So it makes a lot of sense, right? That you give guys a few years before they come in and start making these calls rather than just putting them immediately and asking them to basically select or not select guys who they've been sharing the dressing room with.
Yeah. Okay, I guess moving on to the final thing for the day, which is Bangladesh out of the blue have won a test match. They just beat New Zealand at home. They won by 150 runs. It was a pretty, I mean, first innings, both teams scored about 310 odd. We had Williamson scoring 100. He's obviously back after his injury, first test match. And then Bangladesh scored 337 in the second innings. They had needed about 330 to win. And New Zealand won 180 all out. The Mitchel Islam is the new spinner who got 10 wickets in the game. So clearly encouraging signs of Bangladesh, who were playing without Shakib Al Hasan, by the way. Second test starts in Mirpur on Wednesday. But Imran, before we wrap up with Bangladesh, it almost seems like their form at home and their form anywhere else, so they simply have no connection, right? They rarely lose things at home. But given the second they step out, they seem to be a different side.
Yeah, totally. They have a reasonably good record at home of late, and I think they've done well against New Zealand in the past as well at home. So it's not, I think, a complete surprise this win in this test match. New Zealand talked about it when pre-series that it's going to be a spin test. They knew, I think they were expecting that they would be tested and trialed by spin. They packed their side with the bunch of spinners. I think 5 spinners in their squad or something like that. But yeah, clearly didn't work. This Tajul guy has, I think he's been bowling well for a bit now. He's been in and around and he's been bowling well, and yeah, 10 wickets to him. But I think all in all, not very surprised by the outcome and by the result. But yeah, New Zealand definitely, sorry, Bangladesh definitely completely different side, home and away. Totally.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff, Imran. Thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure, Faris. Happy to be here.
And for those of you watching, we'll be back in a day or so looking at the England West Indies series and perhaps doing a broader England conversation in terms of where they go from here. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.